Hello and welcome. My name is Michael Timmons. I am the author of the Like and More Saga and the Shards of the Coven series. I am also the organizer for the Writer's Block Author Fair, which is held here in Toledo. Today, we are going to tackle Episode 3 of The Wheel of Time, A Place of Safety. But first, if you're enjoying this content, if you like this video, click the like button, subscribe, and smash that notification bell so that you can get a notification every time I release a new video. On my channel, I do videos about writing, book fairs, and book signings, and also, of course, these videos where I do review The Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime. Started doing this because I am a huge fan of Wheel of Time. I read them multiple times, and I did enjoy the first season of Wheel of Time. I did have some issues with some of the choices that they made, and so I decided that I would share what I thought about each episode here on my channel. So as I said before, I'm going to tackle episode 3 of The Wheel of Time, A Place of Safety. Now, this is a good episode. I really do enjoy this episode. It's very solid. We actually get to spend a little more time with the characters. It's not as much of a rush as the first two episodes were. Obviously, the first episode was I felt was very rushed. But, you know, they needed to leave the two rivers, and they only had an hour to do that, so a lot of the storyline was very rushed. We didn't get a whole lot of time with each of the characters. We just got introduced, and then they were on the go. But this one, we get to spend a good deal of time with the different parties. We have Rand and Matt as they escaped Shadar Logoth. They end up in a town. We have Perrin and Egwene as they are fleeing. They get chased by wolves and end up with the traveling people. And then, of course, we get Nynaeve, who suddenly has reappeared. And that's how the episode starts. So the episode starts basically, we have Nynaeve being dragged by a Trolloc, as we saw her being dragged away in episode 1. She's being dragged, and the Trolloc drags her, but then he sees another wounded Trolloc, and he decides that's apparently an easier meal for him, and so he decides to kill that wounded Trolloc and eat the wounded Trolloc before he is going to eat Nynaeve. So that gives Nynaeve a chance to escape. She goes running from the Trolloc, and of course, since she knows the area, these woods, she manages to get to the cave that we see from episode 1, which is the ceremonial cave, which unfortunately they didn't really use in episode 1. They showed us in the trailer that beautiful scene with Egwene coming out from the waters with the colors, the different colors from the Ajas, and I guess maybe since they didn't really explain how they would know the colors of the Ajas or why they would care the colors of the Ajas, maybe that's why they cut that scene. But it was a beautifully done scene, so I was kind of sad that we didn't get to see it in there. But anyways, so they end up in the cave, or Nynaeve ends up in the cave, and the Trolloc is chasing her there. He gets there, and the Trolloc is really well done. He has 4 separate horns. One of the horns is broken off. His mouth is covered in blood, and it's just as far as practical effects, done really well, really nice. I really enjoy it. And he's chasing her into this cave. Now, the one thing I didn't like about this scene is, she's in this water, and Trolloc's just walking by there, and he can't really see her, which, I mean, he's like 8-9 feet tall above her, but apparently can't see into the pool where she is. I guess it's possible, but it just didn't seem very practical. So he goes over to the pool, he stabs it a few times with his spear before, and manages not to get her, but because she's under the water holding her breath at this point in time. he gets into the water to, I guess, search a little bit more because he's smelled her. You can see that he does it, sniffs the air. He knows that she came in here, and he's pretty sure that she's in the pool. So he goes in the pool so he can stab a little deeper, I guess. And Nynaeve manages to come out, and she attacks the Trolloc with his own sword. It's a pretty fierce scene, and kind of shows Nynaeve's strength and power and her desire to fight, and it's good. It's a good scene. So she stabs him right in the heart, and they splash into the water, and the blood makes a nice little dragon fang in the water, which is a good nod to us book readers. You know, see the dragon's fang there, but also kind of, I don't know, a little silly, but it was a nice nod to us. So she gets out. She survives the attack from the Trolloc, and that's how she ends up with Lan. Sorry, I need to keep drinking because my throat gets dry. This is not sponsored by Mountain Dew, but they want to sponsor me. That'd be cool. So she gets out of the pool, and that's how she ends up back with Lan. Now, one of the big problems with this, and some people probably didn't even think about it, but how on earth did she find them? You know, I mean, she didn't know where they. Well, I guess technically she knew they were going to Tar Valon, but you know, they ended up going off the beaten path and towards Shadar Logoth. You know, so they diverted from their original pathway to Tar Valon, the straight east there, and plus they were running from Trollocs to start with. So somehow she managed to get where she was, track them to Shadar Logoth, and then get over the river and find Lan and Moiraine. It's pretty impractical. I don't care how good of a tracker you are. This is, you know, it's not very practical how she got there. But there we are. We have the title sequence. I still enjoy the title sequence. So then we have Lan and Nynaeve, and of course Lan's like, "How did you find me?" And
you think you know this woman? She can't move. They tried to kill me.
Now this has got a weird scene because she's holding him at sword point, and you know he's like, "Hey, you don't really know what's going on. Moiraine is keeping these people, keeping your friends safe. And she didn't leave them. I made that choice because she's too wounded." And so she's, you know, keeps threatening him with his sword. And he's like, "You know, you're not gonna do anything. You're not gonna do it." So then she tries to stab him, tries to kill him. Why? I mean, there's no reason why she would feel the need to try to kill him. I mean, she clearly, Rand, Egwene, Mat, Perrin, and are not there. Those two people are the only people that are going to be able to tell her where they went or possibly find them. And Moiraine looks like she's about to die, and you're going to kill Lan, the one person that probably could help you find your friends. It didn't make sense. It was weird. It didn't make sense. I mean, it is a nice interaction because then she bites him and he just knocks her out, which I thought was kind of funny. He's just like, whatever, just, you know, because, you know, he's not going to put up with it. So after he knocks her out, we go back to Mat and Rand.
Help to him if we get ourselves killed.
And
right?
it's got a great line in here by Mat. Matt always gives the great lines here. So
and if we find him, we're not going back out.
he talks about going.
It's That's not how roads work.
He talks about Rand talks about going to Tarvalon and not home, and Matt's like, we don't know how to even get to Tarvalon, and Rand's like, all roads, they say all roads lead to Tarvalon, and Matt's like, that's not how roads work, which is just a great line. Love that writing.
It's east.
So they decided east. Now, I will say, this outdoor area that Rand and Matt are in outside of Shara Logath is beautiful. It looks really nice. It looks, it's just a beautiful landscape. The locations that they use for this show, just about every single one of them, are gorgeous. They're just absolutely gorgeous. And they really did a good job of finding nice locations that have that grand feel, like Lord of the Rings, but it's like they made a choice. Like, well, we can't do New Zealand because Lord of the Rings is already nailed New Zealand, so we gotta find someplace else. And so they decided to find someplace else that still looks epic and fantasy, but isn't New Zealand, and they nailed it. So I love it. So Rand and Matt decide they're going to go to Tarvalon, start heading east. Then we go to Perrin and Egwene, and they're on this tundra-like landscape. It's not really tundra because there's no snow, but it looks just cold and stark. And the wolves are following them. And we have this weird scene where Perrin can't seem to light a fire, which I get it, because, I mean, he's cold and they're desperate. But and then Egwene uses the one power to do it. And he says, Egwene says, well, Rand's going to go home. And Perrin's like, no. Rand will go where you're going, and he knows that you're going to go east. So it's kind of a sweet exchange, but we have this thing where, once again, they're kind of hinting that Perrin has feelings for Egwene, which I don't like. It comes off as kind of as a friend, but the looks that he gives her, like he tells her to come over, to cuddle up with him so that they can stay warm, and she leans against him, and he puts his arm around her, but he has this look like he's not particularly comfortable having her that close. I mean, like, he wants her close, but he feels uncomfortable because he's gotten what he wants. And like I said, once again, it hints at this whole thing about Perrin having feelings for Egwene, which, I mean, I know they kind of mentioned it in the books that he at one point thought he liked Egwene, but then he realized that Rand and Egwene were together, or going to be together, and really liked each other. So he just stopped. He didn't let it go any further. So like I said, I just don't like how they kind of play that up here. So then we return to Lan and Moraine. Moraine's still hurt, and Lan convinces
She best give me the answers I want.
Nynaeve to
Are you really in a position to be making demands?
Nynaeve to help Moraine. So she uses her wisdom power abilities. She goes and she searches for different barks and leaves and stuff, which is kind of interesting.
All the way from the Two Rivers to Sturlacost. How?
So, which is kind of neat. They kind of show you something they don't really show, or I guess talk too much about in the books. I mean, she always has pouches that has herbs and stuff like that, but in this case, she needs to actually find stuff that she can use to help heal Moraine, and it's kind of nice. They show the whole process of her finding these things, of her making it into a poultice, and then applying it to her, which I think is really nice. They have a good exchange. I I'm sorry. I'm horrible with names today for some reason. Nynaeve and Lan have a nice little back and forth. Kind of starts to show a little bit of, I guess, a little bit of interest there, which of course, as we know, manifests itself
So get
into
ready, because this is going to hurt.
the books. So she does a little bit of healing on Moraine. From there, we go to our Perrin's dream. We have a dream sequence with Perrin. Now, one thing I didn't catch the first time I watched this, I actually watched it when I watched it the second time I got it. When Perrin wakes up from the bed, he gets up, and in the window behind him, you can see the eyes of, which we know is Shamael. So it was kind of a nice little touch, and I didn't notice it the first time. When I watched it the second time, I was like, "Oh, look, there he's in the window." I was looking at Perrin, I was watching Perrin, so although now I see it, it's like terribly obvious. So of course, Perrin's looking for Layla, and he walks through. So he walks the forge, and he finds Layla, and the wolves are tearing out her stomach and eating her intestines, which is pretty gruesome. And then Layla turns her head towards him. Her eyes are all glassed over because she's dead, and she whispers, "I know." Now, once again, we're getting that impression that she knows that he has feelings for Egwene, like we did in episode 1. There was definitely some tension there, and she didn't go to Egwene's ceremony, and it gave us that impression that Perrin liked Egwene. Layla knew about it and was upset about it, and here we go. We get that impression again. Then we have a little jump scare of a Shamael. That's it. I realize why they do this for viewers. It's visually, it's fascinating, it's interesting, it gives us that jump scare, that thing, but I don't like a Shamael as a jump scare, I don't like that. I like it better where he interacts with them on a one-on-one basis and threatens them or tries to convince them to, that they can't run, and that for me creates a better villain, better. Like I said, at this point, he's just at the same level as the Trollocs, just a jump scare, a threatening presence. It's just we don't get that next level of villain yet in this yet. So then we return to Mat and Rand.
The man who once walked while a little chilly. You funny now. That's a new wrinkle.
And we get to enter a town where we see an Aiel in a cage, but not the Aiel in the cage, as we all know. This one is dead, shot with arrows. He has a little purple rock with him on his purse, which apparently the villagers didn't take back or take from him. They just left it on him. Which, I don't know, I guess they didn't want to, I don't know. It didn't make a lot of sense why he still had it on him, but whatever. So, once again, we have a great set piece. This is an amazing set. This town that they put together, that they built, great. I mean, it's got a nice mill. It has water coming in from where they're mining into the rocks. It's just done really well. It looks so realistic and well done. We got people just, you know, with their horses, their pack horses, with them laden up, and just doing stuff that people do in town. You know, obviously some people kind of give them an eye and whatever. But it's clearly some sort of mining town. They're mining something, which, of course, as we know, that a lot of the towns in the Two Rivers area were known for their mining. That's where they got a lot of their ore from. So they find an inn, and here we get introduced to Tom Maryland, the bard.
We've only got...
Tom. Okay, so here are my thoughts on Tom Maryland. I think the actor who plays him is an exceptional actor. I think, like I said, I get why they chose this actor to be in the show. I don't get why they chose this actor to play Tom Maryland. To me, he's not Tom Maryland at all. I don't care for his singing voice. It's just very raspy, and it's not someone I could see who had been a bard. Someone I think of who has been a bard is going to have a clear, crisp voice, melodic, and not like this one. Now, if they choose not to make him formally be a court bard, I guess that might work a little bit better. But the thing I don't understand is they picked this guy to play Tom Maryland, but then they couldn't put him in the Two Rivers to begin with, like they do in the book, because they couldn't get the actor at that time. So I don't really feel like he's a very good choice for Tom, and because they made this choice for Tom, they couldn't use him in the beginning like they were planning on doing. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't understand why they made that choice. I think they could have found a better actor who had, or I mean, like I said, this guy's not a bad actor. He's a good actor. They could have made a better choice for the role of Tom, and they could have included him in the beginning, like they do in the books, and then they could have been a little more consistent. And then also, as we see in this scene, after he sings the song, Matt gets robbed by someone who bumps into him, you know, which obviously clearly happens. Then Tom bumps into that guy, takes the purse back, and then he doesn't give it back to Matt, which, you know, I could see he might, you know, when Matt says, well, we can't buy a drink for the Gleeman, I could see him saying, well, you already did, and take 3 out of the purse, and then give it back to him and say, look, that was your lesson. But he takes the whole purse. Like, he clearly, these boys can't hardly even afford food, or can't even afford, can barely just afford food. They're going to need a place to stay, and you just robbed them. I mean, somebody else robbed them, but you also robbed them. So after this scene, then we go to Perrin and Egwene, and once again, they're traveling on this lonely plains. The wolves have chased them, and they come across some wagon tracks, which they don't know if they're white cloaks, if they're merchants, they have no idea, but Egwene thinks that maybe the wolves chased them to that spot for a reason, which is odd that she would think that, not Perrin, since he's the one that has more of the instincts of a wolf brother that hopefully will manifest later a little bit more in the series. But so they decide to follow these tracks because they are heading east which is the direction that they are going.
Was headed east.
My friend and I find ourselves.
Then we go back to Matt and Perrin, Matt and Rand. Sorry, once again, I don't know why I'm having trouble with names today. So Matt and Rand are back at the inn. They are trying to convince the tavern keeper, the innkeeper, whatever, that they don't have enough money to stay for the night, but they just need a place to stay, and maybe they can work out some sort of deal. She offers them a chance to work, to cut wood for the fireplace. This is where Matt kind of acts a little bit like a jerk. He says some things that are really mean, but this is kind of where we're starting to get the feel of what the dagger is doing to him. That it's starting to make him act like this way. Although you kind of get the impression that he was kind of always a little bit, insensitive to some extent. Like sometimes he just would say the wrong things. You kind of get that impression from how they portrayed him earlier. But,
Sure, two strong lads like you can manage.
because he decides he's not going to cut wood because Rand is the one that said that he was going to cut wood anyway, so it should be him doing it. And he also says stuff about Egwene, that Egwene wouldn't do the same, wouldn't look for him as he's trying to look for her. So then Matt decides to go back in and ends up being handing out beer and
Everything about me.
instead of helping with the wood. So then we get Rand and I don't know why her name is escaping me at the moment, but the innkeeper's name, which I can't think of at the moment.
Aren't worth much.
You are such.
But she comes out and gets Rand from cutting wood. Oh, I'm sorry. Take that back. Actually, from this, we go to back to Nynaeve and Lan.
So sure.
And Lan decides that he is going to leave them because Moiraine's not getting any better. And leaves Moiraine with Nynaeve, who kind of says, like, I don't know why you're leaving me with her. You can't really trust me. But he's like, I think I can. So, because he knows that she's a healer and that she's going to keep looking after him. So we go back to Perrin and Egwene. I had to pause for a moment there. As they continue and they get closer to where they think the wagons are, Perrin's like, hey, let me go ahead. I'll make sure it's safe. And Nynaeve's like, hey, we do this together. So now we get walking into this area and
Do you know this song?
we meet the traveling people in a very peculiar way that they introduce themselves. They kind of sneak up and surround the two of them in a very frightening and menacing manner, which I guess maybe they did this for drama, for the show, but it's dumb. I'm sorry. It's just dumb. I mean, they should have just... sometimes shows just do drama to do drama, and it's dumb. It makes no sense. It doesn't... I don't like it. Plain and simple. I don't like it. And they ask the silly question, like, do you know the song? And they're like, well, I don't know what the heck's going on. What are you talking about? And then Aram comes out, and he's like, oh, this is what you're supposed to say, and this is, and then we respond in this way. And it's in the book, obviously, this how it gets played out a little bit differently. Elias is with them, and he knows the words, and he kind of, they learn it from him, and they get introduced into this introduced into this thing to the traveling people in a way that isn't scary, but you learn a lot about them. You learn a lot about Elias, and it's just a much better way to introduce them. Isla is really great in this. I really like Ira. Rain, he kind of takes a back seat in this part, which I don't really get. I mean, in the books, both Rain and Isla kind of, they interact with Perrin and Egwene in kind of an equal manner. They both say certain things and they both interact, and it's not like, in the books, obviously Rain is sort of the leader of this family of traveling people, and Isla is his wife, and well, she's not necessarily the leader, but she's still very vocal and whatever. But here it's like Isla's the leader and Rain's just kind of like there, and he doesn't seem to really have an equal part, which my problem with this, and this is kind of a problem with the series and the show so far, is, and I hate to even say this because I don't want it to sound like, well, you're just a guy and you don't like the stuff because you're a guy. It's not. There are so many strong and powerful women in this book series that there's not a necessity to give roles for the women to shine more than the men when there are plenty of those within the books. I mean, there was no reason to change how the dynamics of this, but it seems to me like they changed the dynamics of this to give more representation for women. But like I said, there's plenty of representation of women, powerful women in the show, in the series, in the books, that I don't know why you need to take away from men all the time to give it to the women when there's plenty of both in the series. That's just my opinion. I mean, you tell me what you think, whether you agree with the way that they do this stuff, whether or not I'm wrong, that I'm just maybe being a little sensitive. I don't know, that overly sensitive about them taking, men's roles away from the men to give to the women. Maybe I'm just blowing that out of proportion, but it seems to me that's what's going on in the show. So hey, let me know. So Aram kind of is,
Surely you've heard of the Tinkers?
talks about the Tinkers, tells them the Dwatwan, and here they don't know, but of course in the books everybody knows who the Tinkers are and everybody knows their reputation. So I don't know why they chose to make it seem like they didn't know who they were. So now we're back at the inn with Rand and I'm sorry, I am horrible. I should be able to remember the name of the innkeeper, but for some reason I cannot. But we're back with her.
I let your friend off an hour ago.
And
Figured he'd join you.
Not until all the work's done, I'm sure.
And
That's plenty for now, and the next year, probably.
So, it's alright if we stay out of here?
so the innkeeper leads him into a little back room. Kind of implies that Rand and Matt are lovers, and he's like, I can do much better than Matt if I was interested in men. It's kind of a funny little thing. I'm not sure why she would get that impression. I'm sure there's plenty of people that travel together, or men, and I don't know. It seemed like a weird thing for her to imply, but whatever. I guess
These ears
she
run
got that
high
vibe from them,
schools,
but I don't know.
whatever you are.
Well, have his. It's done by rule. Unless you're working.
Oh. You don't think I drink on the job, and you have sorely misjudged me.
So Rand offers up, says, hey, you can drink with me, and they start hanging out. Now Lan manages to find something, and he returns back and gathers up Nynaeve and says, hey, we can go. Then we're back and we see Matt. What he's doing, he is approaching the Aiel in the cage, and we realize that he's planning on robbing the Aiel from that little stone that he has.
What are you doing, boy?
Tom shows up behind him, and
Could ask the same of you, old man.
is kind of threatening him, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?"
Don't want to hurt you.
Get me out before you could lay a finger on me.
They kind of talk tough to each other, but Tom's like, "Hey, I'm not even here for you. I'm just here to bury the Aielman," which is kind of nice. That's very Tom-like, so I kind of like that.
What kind of farm boy from the Two Rivers has met a truth?
He somehow knows that Matt is from the Two Rivers, from, I don't know, I guess his accent and his dress, but kind of surprising. He could have been anywhere from
I heard them Tom bragging about killing an Aiel.
So this is where we also see that the Aielmen have red hair. Tom mentions that, you don't often see red hair anywhere outside of the waist. So this is where we first get our idea that maybe Rand might be an Aielman, although it doesn't seem to really kind of...
He's an Aiel.
How many things outside accent and dress can tell you where a person's from?
It doesn't really kind of...
But it is rare to see their color hair
I don't
outside
really
Aiel
settle with
race.
Matt. Matt doesn't even seem to show like...
Stories say
wow,
that
that's
about
right
his
there.
job.
I know.
But better. So Matt basically says
Like
that
he needs it.
he was there to basically take the stone from the guy. Tom's like,
All have desperate moments.
hey, I understand. It
Tell me when
happens.
you're finished.
Go ahead, you can take what you want from him. And so he finds Stone Dog, which is obviously that's the clan that this Aiel is from, and he also takes the gem. He apologizes to the Aielmen. He says, "Hey, I'm sorry, but I have sisters that need me." See now, even right now, he's thinking about returning home to protect his sisters, to help his sisters out. So that's why I have her. Now I realize I was just listening to a part about in the books where after they take the Stone of Tyr, where Matt wants to go home with Perrin because Perrin's going home because the White Cloaks are there, and he can't because Rand has his Tavirness has got him held up there. So, but Perrin is able to. Well, of course, but it's Taviran, so obviously Matt needs to go there. Perrin doesn't need to go to the waste, but Matt does with Rand. So, but like I said, at no point later in the books at all does Matt ever, even when he's free of Rand, does he go back to the Two Rivers to go home, and which doesn't jive with the fact that he, in this series here, he cares so much about his sisters that he needs to get home. So, he takes from the Aiel, and then him and Tom bury the Aiel. So,
Needs to get away.
Rand and the innkeeper talk some more,
Why are you
and
letting him go back
she
in
kind
there?
of flirts with him a little bit, and even tries to kiss him.
What?
But he
Lion
pulls away, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I came out too strong." So she goes, and she looks like she's about to leave, but instead she locks the door and says, "I shouldn't have braided my hair because I look too much like Egwene." And he's like, "Whoa, what? How do you know Egwene? What's going on?" So she locks him in there. She takes his sword and says, "Hey, now I just need to wait for Matt to come back." And so we go back to Matt and Tom. They have a nice little exchange, and Matt's like, "Hey, now that we know each other, can you give me my money back?" And Tom's like, "Oh, sure, I'll give it back." But then he realizes that Matt took it from him. So it was a nice little payback. It was just a little good exchange. So now we are back to the innkeeper and Rand, and he's trying desperately to get out of
That
door
there.
is made of iron, with 3 men your size couldn't break it down.
And
And like I-
she tells him, you can't break down that door. It's too strong. If 3 men couldn't break it down, and nobody's going to hear you. So he
Right.
still throws his shoulder
No
against
one
it a
can
few
hear a
times
thing outside.
and doesn't give up. Because as usual, he's stubborn, just like Rand always is, and something happens and he breaks down the door. Now, we learn later on in the series, and we know as readers, that he uses the one power. He channels his way through the door. But see, now this is part of the problem of the series. So far, the impression is that when someone is channeling, that you're able to see the weaves, that you can see what they're doing, you can see the weaves as they pull it in there. They give you every impression that that's how this works. That when Aes Sedai uses the one power and weaves a spell, that you are actually able to see the weaves from the spell, and you know that they're casting. Cut to this scene. Rand uses the one power. He doesn't know what he's doing, but he uses the one power, and he busts down the door. We're looking at him. We can see him. We can see, whatever we need to see about him, and we can't see him actually weave anything to open the door. We see no impression that that a one power was actually used from him. So, can we see it or can we not? And, this is the part of the problem. If you're not going to stay consistent, just so you can hide the fact that he's channeling, they could have handled this a different way. They could have shown us from the other side, so we couldn't actually seen him be able to channel visually, because we couldn't actually see it through his back, as one thing. But yet we were at a perspective where we could actually have seen if he was channeling, and we didn't see anything. So I don't, like I said, they're not staying consistent with the rules that they have established, and that's just poor writing. So Rand escapes. He runs. He sees Matt. He grabs Matt. They race through the town. It's a really good scene. The innkeeper's chasing them with Rand's sword. What I don't understand here is, though, she's chasing them, and so she's chasing them through the town, and the scene that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense here is they are going through the town, which I get. It makes sense that she would know the town better and be able to keep up and know where they're going. But they're running from her, and they go basically to the right, down an alley. She gets to that point, and she goes left. Now, like I said, I get that you maybe know the town a little bit more, but if you go in the opposite directions, there's really no way to cut somebody off. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if she looked to where they went and went straight, and then cut around, and because she knew that they were going to have to go this way in the end, and she would be able to cut them off that way, that would make sense. But when you go in the opposite directions, I don't know, how would you even cut them off? Doesn't make a lick of sense. So they're running, and they end up in this area, and she's there waiting for them with the sword. And I'm going to find out her name right now. Dana.
What are you doing?
There we go. Sorry, I could not remember her name the whole time. So Dana, she's here with the sword. Now this is a great scene, because they're like, hey, what's going on? Why are you doing this? And, why are you trying to kill me? And she's like, I'm not trying to kill you. They're not trying to kill you. The Dark One doesn't want to kill you. She wants you to help them end it all. She is so tired of her existence in this crappy town that she just wants the suffering to end. She wants the world to end, and that's the Dark One can do that. If the dragon sides with him, he can break the wheel and end the suffering. This is really good because now we have a completely different perspective on what the Dark One and his minions might want. Because before, obviously, they were being hunted. We assumed that they just wanted to kill the Dragon Reborn because they're evil. They're bad people. Now, Dana, not necessarily a bad person, she, almost in a way, she wants people to stop suffering. I mean, obviously, it would mean the end of all existence, but it would just also mean the end of suffering. And so she's not really evil in her intentions. I mean, the results could be perceived as being evil. She's almost like a Thanos character. She wants to wipe out half, instead of wiping out half the universe to end suffering and, everybody clamoring for resources, she just wants to end everything, and so to end the suffering. So, in a way, she's not necessarily sympathetic, but it's a different take on what the villains might want. Here we have a villain that doesn't want them dead, isn't just evil for the sake of evil. She is making choices because she is tired. She's tired of life. She's tired of suffering. She hears too much about people suffering, and she just wants it to end. So it's a really, it's really good because, like I said, we just get this whole new perspective on that, and you kind of understand it. And but she also says that she summoned a Fade, an Isla, and they'll be there soon. So Rand's like, hey, we're not waiting here, we're leaving. So Dana's like, I can't let you leave. So basically, if you're gonna try to leave, I'll basically take the sword and I'll kill you. And that's when Tom shows up, throws a dagger into her throat, kills her, and is like, hey, we need to get out of here. We need to get out of here fast if one of the Islas is coming. So are you coming or not? And Matt's like, it sounds like a good idea. Rand's like, I don't want to go anywhere with this guy. He just killed a woman in front of me. He's still got that perspective of, I would never hurt a woman. I don't want to hurt women, which is very noble. And, this woman was just killed in front of him. And he's a little shook by it. But he's like, okay, I guess we'll go. And they flee. Now, obviously, they don't give you the impression that they went back for their stuff, but they have to, because later Rand has his coat again and his bow and his arrows, which he left back in the little room that him and Dana were in when he ran. So I don't know. Even though they have to run away real fast, they still take time to go back and get their stuff, which I guess makes sense. Now, they had this nice scene here where Dana's bleeding out into a puddle, and the blood goes out, and then the blood stain becomes trees, and so it's like a transition to the next scene. Really beautifully done, but it's the only one in the whole series. Transition-wise, it's done like this, and I don't get it, because when you do something thematically like this, and it works so well, I don't understand why they don't do this more. Why they didn't do this more. It worked really well, and it would be nice to see more transitions like this within the series, and they never do it again. So I guess I don't really get it. So we get back to Moraine and Nynaeve, and they are traveling this road, and Nynaeve's like, hey, we've been at this for like 3 hours. Where are we going? You haven't even told me anything. And
We've been heading southwest for 3 hours now.
then we see up in the tree, up on these cliff faces, we see some Aes Sedai that are up on either side of this cliff, which, why? Why are they there? what are they doing there? How did they even get there with their horses? It doesn't make any sense. It would have made more sense if there were warders up there, because warders would be the ones that would be like the scouts, the people ahead of everything. It doesn't really make sense. But I guess thematically it looks kind of cool. So from there we have, we see Leandrin. She comes in down the path. So is, obviously Landrin haven't seen since episode 1, and she approaches. She knows Moraine's to die, she says, and Moraine's like, Leandrin's to die, and Leandrin's like, hey, you're too late. We already caught the false dragon, and this is the first time we get to see Logain. And that is how the episode ends. So we get introduced. We get to see Logain, who is maybe the dragon at this point. For those watching the show, they don't know. They're like, oh, wait, there's other people that could be the dragon. So it creates another mystery. I do like that they increased Logain's presence and gave us more of his story and gave some screen time to it, especially in that next episode. Because, obviously he does have more to do as the story progresses. And I like I said, if they hadn't spent a lot of time with the main characters in this episode, I would have had more of an issue with them introducing Logain and spending more time with Logain. But they did give us some time with the main characters, so it was nicely done. And so that is the end of episode 3, Place of Safety. And like I said, it was a good, solid episode. I did like it a lot. I did like the interaction between Matt and Rand. That showed a lot of dynamics between those two characters and their friendship, and how sometimes it isn't going well. And obviously we know that Matt is under the sway of the dagger, and which unfortunately this is kind of only a little bit of a taste that we really kind of get from that. So it's not until later where he starts to really show the effects, but we don't see the progression of the taint of the dagger as it works on him and how he gets worse and worse. And it's basically like we get some hints now that he's acting a little bit off, and then he starts to really drop down lower and get worse. It's kind of in the books, obviously they take more time to show you into the progression of the taint, but obviously, once again, I get it. They had limited time to show a lot, and that's not necessarily their fault. That's more of Amazon's fault for not giving us enough time for the story. Having 8 episodes and with just an hour each episode is just not enough time to tell the story that they needed to tell, in my opinion. I know some of the viewers who were not book readers felt at some points it dragged a little bit, but I would have just liked more time in this world and more time shown to each of these things. So well, that is it. I hope you enjoyed this review of episode 3, Place of Safety. And please join me next week. I will be tackling episode 4, The Dragon Reborn, which we get to see more of Logain. And that's a good episode. There's some serious problems I had with that episode. I know it's a favorite from a lot of the readers. And like I said, it's a good episode, but there's some choices in there I don't agree with, and I'll share them with you next week. So until then, I will see you later. And if you did like this video, please click the subscribe button and the notification bell so that when I release the next week's episode, you'll be notified. All right, have a great day.